Welcome to the Hello Sunday podcast with me, Nikki Hayden. This is the podcast that discusses everything self-development, spirituality and sobriety, and it wouldn't be me without a little sprinkling of humour. Whether you are just starting out on your journey of self-development or have been exploring these topics for years, are completely alcohol-free or just curious about living a more sober lifestyle, this is the podcast for you. Each week, I'll be exploring topics in both solo episodes and with some amazing guest experts. So if you like what you hear, then please subscribe, rate and review. So with that said, let's dive into today's episode. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Hello Sunday. It's great to have you back listening. I really appreciate every single one of you that tune in every week. Now, it's been a hot minute since we spoke about anything to do with sobriety or sober curiousness. I think, to be honest, the last few weeks, I've just had so many conversations and so much that has come up just during the week to do with like the subjects and topics that we've covered over the last couple of months, that the sober stuff has just taken a bit of a backseat because I wanted to talk about things like as they came up, and so that the observations and the thoughts and the thought processes were all like really fresh. But actually it's the case now that what we're going to talk about today is super fresh and super relevant. And actually, I just think going into the Christmas period, it's just worth having that refresher and having that chat, because I know so many of you have expressed an interest in being a bit more sober or just taking a bit of a backseat with the regular drinking. And actually the season that we're coming into, that Christmas period, is so rife with opportunities to drink and social occasions and expectations and peer pressure, that sometimes it's just a bit of a reminder and just a bit of a refresh that might kind of put you back on track again, or certainly for me, that's what's happened. So a couple of weeks ago, we got invited to a friend's house. It was her birthday during the week, and it was also her housewarming. So she just had a new house. She just bought a new house. It's literally within a 10-15 minute walk from ours. And on the same day, it was also mine and my husband's first wedding anniversary. So we knew that we were going to be doing something. We have got lots of stuff upcoming, obviously with the Christmas season upon us, and we're going on holiday and we've just got lots to save for. So we just felt like we didn't want to go out. We wanted to go and buy like a really nice meal to have in the house together. And then we had told our friend that we would go down to hers for some drinks and we'd obviously already seen the new house, but just to, see everyone and spend some time with our friendship group. So that was the plan. And normally when these things arise, it's not really kind of like a thought process for me now. It's just, I probably won't drink at them. The last time I'd gone out and had a drink like that was August, and that was for another friend's birthday. And that again was like a planned occasion where it was actually bank holiday, so we didn't have work on the Monday. I knew that if I felt a little bit rough, a little bit worse for wear, that it would be fine. And this was another occasion where, I don't know why, but for some reason, I just decided that I wanted to drink. I think my husband was quite keen. Well, not necessarily quite keen. That was probably not fair. He would never, ever suggest or push me into like drinking ever. But I think we wanted to buy a bottle of wine and share a bottle of wine. Not that we ended up sharing the whole bottle. We had a glass each with the dinner that we bought. So that's what we did. We went out, we bought all the stuff to make a nice dinner, and then we bought a bottle of wine and we just had a glass each before we went out. And then we'd made a, like, not even a pitcher, like one of those NutriBullet cups of margarita. I know what you're all thinking. Why are you drinking wine and tequila when you've basically been sober for most of the year? What a concoction to be an absolute clusterfuck. And you can see where this is going. So we bought the ingredients to make the margaritas, and then we put it into like a NutriBullet. So it wasn't even a lot of like cocktail. It was probably, I'd say with normal measures, maybe like 2 or 3 each. And we bought some Fever Tree, lime, and soda drink, and then we topped it up. So it was like a kind of a fizzy margarita, if you like, but it was a bit watered down. Anyway, we had the glass of wine, felt absolutely fine. I didn't really feel a lot from it, actually, which was surprising. And then we walked down to our friends and we had a couple of drinks and we left at a really respectable time. And it wasn't a wild evening. We were all just stood around chatting in the kitchen. And yeah, we were back home by like, I think 1 a.m. And went to bed. I took my makeup off, went to bed, did everything that we needed to, took my supplements. And I woke up the next morning and I was so poorly. I was throwing up. I couldn't get out of bed. My head was pounding. I looked horrendous. And just instantly, I was like, why did I do that? Why did I go to an occasion and decide to drink knowing that we were walking there and back anyway? So, you know, it wasn't far away. If I wanted to come home at any point, I could have done. Not everyone was drinking there anyway, so it wasn't like a huge pressure of a social occasion. And I just don't know why I did it. I really don't know why I did it. And yeah, I just woke up and I was like, not only do I look and feel like shit, but I'm wasting a whole day now because everything that we'd got planned for that day was a write-off. We had some tradespeople here doing some work out the front and my husband had to see to them because I just felt so rough. And he even said that day, if I reacted to alcohol like you do, I 100% would not be drinking because I totally get it now. I think he'd only ever seen me really poorly like that after like quite a few drinks. And I think after seeing me like that after like 4, he was like, yeah, I get it now. So I've done enough of this work and I've been in the like sobriety space and all the groups and stuff for long enough to know that you don't have to go back to day one again. Like, it's not a beat yourself up situation. If you've done any length of time sober in the year, regardless of how long that is, when you wouldn't have done that before, that is something to give yourself a pat on the back about. It's something to celebrate and to commend yourself for. So whilst I was in a pit of, I guess, self-pity and just, real regret, I also knew that actually there'd been so many occasions this year when I would have normally drank. I mean, it used to be the case that we would finish work on Friday and go and buy a bottle of wine or a bottle of gin and we'd share that over the weekend. We don't do that anymore. I certainly don't do that anymore. There wouldn't have been a whole month in the year at any point where we hadn't have consumed a bit of alcohol. And for me, I have to remind myself of that. And I've never claimed on this podcast or anywhere else that I am fully sober. I've never claimed that that is where I'm going to end up. Every time that stuff like this happens, every time that I go out and drink, there's definitely something in me saying, yeah, enough's enough now. But I also do enjoy the odd glass of wine with a meal or with my family. So there's a line, isn't there? But then there's also the other school of thought that's like, what's the point in just having the one? And actually, I was talking to a friend the day after it happened, and she's also been super sober this year. And she was saying that she'd read, I think it was online, she'd read it, it was on socials, but it was a sober account that had posted almost like the science behind having one drink or knowing your limits. And they were saying, first of all, knowing your limits can vary so much. It depends what you've eaten. It depends where you're at in your hormone cycle if you're female. It depends on the alcohol that you're drinking, the social setting that you're in, the strength of the drink in terms of like the pour. There's so many things that affect. One week you could drink a certain type of drink and amount and be fine, and the next week it might really affect you. So there isn't really any such thing as knowing your limits when it comes to alcohol. And also the other thing is that you can go into a social occasion with the best of intentions of just drinking 1 or 2 drinks. But the second that you have that one drink, it changes your ability to make decisions clearly like you would do when you were sober. So as soon as you've had one drink, you might as well have had more, because in essence, that decision-making ability is completely changed. It also raises your dopamine levels. So you're constantly chasing that, almost that like feeling of the first drink, and you're never going to get it, because after the first drink, your dopamine levels drop quickly. And that's why people very, very, very rarely manage to have just one drink, because it's actually like the science-based reasons as to why that doesn't work. It's not just that you're lacking in willpower or lacking in the ability to make that decision and stop. And that made so much sense, because I was like, after that glass of wine, it wasn't like I was craving the next drink, but I was definitely like, yeah, this is fine. This is all good. And because I didn't feel like tipsy or drunk, it just felt like, yeah, let's carry on. And then obviously the more you have, the more that your ability to stop or your decision making to stop gets clouded and it gets foggy. So yeah, I was not happy with myself on the Sunday, but I did remind myself of all of the things that I've just mentioned about it. We are programmed in a way that this stuff is meant to be moreish. It's meant to be addictive for some people. But again, you don't have to have an alcohol addiction to have a bad relationship with alcohol. And having a bad relationship with alcohol doesn't mean that you can't control the amount that you drink. It doesn't mean you're putting vodka on your cornflakes. It doesn't mean that you drink every day. It just means that you, I guess in essence, don't have as much control over the decisions to drink or not to drink. So for me, it meant that if there was a social occasion or there was just a Friday night, I would immediately go to great wine or great gin. And that was a bad relationship, because I was associating certain things with alcohol rather than making the decision of, do I want to drink tonight? And actually what I've done over the last 12 months is completely change that, because I didn't feel any peer pressure that weekend to drink whatsoever. Far from it. I actually had friends texting me saying, do you want to bring like some alcohol-free drinks and we'll share them? And the irony was I did actually take a bottle of alcohol-free wine with me, because the plan was to have a margarita and then drink that and see how I felt. Clearly didn't work for the reasons that I've just mentioned. But yeah, I didn't feel like I was going to do that, and I did. So that isn't necessarily a bad relationship, but it does just mean that we're all susceptible to the same stuff, whether you've been sober for 10 years, 10 months, 10 minutes, 10 days, whatever. It still works with our bodies in the same way. And actually, I think me having more time sober this year has just meant that I react even more badly to it now, that actually my body just rejects it even more. Because in essence, it's a poison, right? There's no nutritional value in alcohol. There's nothing good in it. Regardless of how many people say, oh, but red wine can help with heart problems and it can be good for your heart. It's bullshit, basically. The things that are good for your heart are eating a healthy diet, lowering your intake of fatty food, exercise. Nowhere in there is your doctor going to prescribe you with drinking red wine. So you're clutching at straws if that is your kind of defense. But yeah, my relationship with alcohol has changed in this last year. And for that, I'm so, so proud of myself. And I think waking up on that Sunday, I just had to remind myself that this was a conscious decision. Yes, it's been a blip, but actually it's just served as a reminder as to like why I don't drink much anymore, and why when I have occasions that I want to enjoy, it's probably best to try and stick to the soft drinks, the alcohol-free drinks, because for me personally, it just doesn't react well. And actually, I look back at some of the occasions where I have drank, and I kind of wish now that I hadn't. I wish that I would remember them just more clearly. I wish that I would have, more in focus memories and heightened senses of those occasions instead of kind of like the dull, cloudy memories that I do have. But being proud of myself, changing that relationship, it's been a journey and it's still a journey. And I think this is just a reminder that you can have months under your belt sober, you can have years under your belt sober. Having a blip doesn't mean that you've got to start again from day one, but I would take the learnings from it. I would take everybody that I know that doesn't drink very often, whenever they do drink, they always regret it. I've never met anybody that's like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that I got smashed that night, because it never really adds anything to the evening. And then the next day, it just makes you feel like shit and you can't do the things that you want to do. And also, the main reason that I stopped drinking this year was to give myself a really good run at setting up my business in the first 100 days. And my productivity goes into the freaking toilet when I'm hungover. And actually the day after that as well. So the Monday was definitely not my best day. There was points on that Monday where I was like, I don't want to be working right now. But I didn't have a choice because I've got a business to run. And yeah, I was pissed off with myself and I had a lot of regret, but I did have to keep pulling myself up and being like, look, you made this choice and you have changed your relationship with alcohol in the last year. But I think there is definitely a preconception that unless you are addicted, that doesn't mean that you've got a bad relationship, but it can mean anything. It can mean that you don't react well to it. It can mean it makes you feel like shit the next day. It can mean that you don't put conscious thought into the occasions where you'll drink versus not drinking, and you just associate every social occasion with alcohol. All of those things are not having a good relationship with a toxic substance. And it's not great, is it? So going into Christmas, I'm definitely not going to be drinking like that. I'm definitely going to be finding some decent substitutes to some of my favourite alcoholic drinks like mulled wine and Baileys and stuff that I just associate with that season. And I'm definitely going to be enjoying making sharper memories that I don't look back on through like a foggy lens, and not having that kind of anxiety and that feeling of what did I do? What did I say? Is there anyone that I need to text and apologise, or, having my husband say, oh gosh, do you remember when you said that or did that last night? That is definitely a plus. And I think you just have to take the learnings. You have to take, in it, like everything in life, it's like texting an ex or going backwards into something that you've given up, or smoking again, or anything that you have made a conscious decision to give up for your own good that's really freaking tough. If you go back to it and it teaches you something, or it gets you one step closer to giving it up for good, then I don't see that as the worst thing in the world. But the occasions where I'm breaking my sobriety and where I'm having these revelations and reminders, they're definitely getting like there's more time between them, which for me, that can only be a good thing. So if you are currently sober, or you're thinking about going sober, or you're sober curious, or you just want to have a clearer, less hungover Christmas, then definitely do it. And I hope that this has been a good reminder as to why you might be on that path. And everyone's going to have their own reasons, right? Like everyone's going to have things that they're doing it for. And I think sometimes we forget that when we've done it for a while, we forget the reasons why we first entered into it. And sometimes you just have to make those mistakes, in inverted commas, to remind you. But maybe my mistake can be your reminder. Maybe you don't have to go back there yourself then. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode and I hope that you found it useful. Please do rate, subscribe, share, follow, all of the good stuff with this episode and with the show. And thank you for listening. And I look forward to coming into your ears again next week. Thanks for listening. You can find us on Instagram at HelloSundayPod, or you can email us on hellosundaypod@outlook.com. Have a great week.